Hey kids, the story I'm about to tell you is a weird one. It happened on a regular Saturday in May of 2016 when I was 10 years old. It was the beginning of summer break, and the summer of 16 was what many of my generation consider to be the best one ever. But on that Saturday, my mom called me inside from the backyard. This wasn't anything new to me. Mom calling me to come to her was practically her career, but this time, she had a much more concerned tone to her voice. So, I went up the stairs to my front porch, opened the door to the living room, and I saw something like this on the TV.
Because he's dragging my son. I can't watch this. I can't watch.
The timeline as we knew it would symbolically change, and would be what many in my generation say is the catalyst for everything wrong with the world today. So for those of you who are either too young to remember it, or weren't born yet, first of all, your parents need to monitor your internet access, but also, let me tell you the tale of how one gorilla's death set us off course. This is the story of Harambe, and I'm here to capitalize off the 10th anniversary of it like we all capitalize off 9/11 every year. Also, Casual Geographic already made a video like this a year ago, and the one I'm providing for you today is basically the exact same thing as his. So if you want a better video explaining the incident, then I recommend you watch his first. Link in the description. Anyway, before we get into the meats of the incident, we have to answer the question, who was Harambe? Born on May 27th, 1999 in the Gladys Porter Zoo in Brownsville, Texas, Harambe was an endangered western lowland gorilla and the child of Moha and Kayla. Yes, this is his mother with W. Obviously, Bush did Harambe would be a popular meme with this image emerging online. Named after the song by Bob Marley's wife, Rita, Harambe is actually a Swahili term for peace, unity, and coming together. Sadly and ironically though, his early life would be anything but, as he was rejected by his mother, and at 3 weeks old, and with no one to look after him, he was taken in by zoo director Jerry Stone, who raised Harambe like his own son, feeding him, changing his diapers, even taking him home with him. Harambe had a reputation of being a little troublemaker, as he would frequently steal blankets, splash other keepers with water, and climb on restricted areas so that other zookeepers could catch him when he fell backward. As he got older though, Jerry would start coming into his enclosure less and less, as Harambe's roughhouse banter could lead to him getting seriously hurt. Tragedy later struck on January 6, 2002, when a chlorine gas leak took the lives of Harambe's mother, brother, and half-sister. In 2014, at the age of 15, he was then transferred to the Cincinnati Zoo with the purpose of starting his own troupe and contributing to the zoo's gorilla breeding program. On the fateful day of May 28, 2016, just one day after Harambe's 17th birthday, Michelle Gregg took her 4 children to the Cincinnati Zoo. And while they were at the gorilla world, her 3.5-year-old son, Isaiah Dickerson, told her, "Mommy, I want to go swimming with the gorillas." His mother rightfully told him to shut the f*** up and that was a terrible idea. She then turned her back to tend to her other children, and within this brief time frame, Isaiah seized this opportunity to crawl under the 3-foot-tall metal and cable guardrail, and after crawling under the barrier and through the shrubbery, suddenly plunged 15 feet into the gorilla moat. Upon seeing her son in the moat, Michelle and the others around her began screaming at the top of their lungs, immediately alerting police and zookeepers, who managed to get most of the gorillas into the boarding house to prevent the boy from being harmed by them. But one let his curiosity take over, and Harambe approached the boy and started holding him. Now, luckily, gorillas aren't the violent brutes that Hollywood once portrayed them to be, and are actually quite peaceful animals that only get aggressive when directly provoked. Children have actually fallen into gorilla enclosures at zoos twice before, and both times escaped unharmed. And Harambe seemed to be doing the same thing to the boy, but he was also doing this. With the teenage gorilla seemingly unaware of just how rough he was handling the child, zookeepers and onlookers feared the worst. The boy could lose an arm or suffer an extreme concussion as a result of being dragged around by the ape. And after 10 long minutes, zookeepers made the quick but difficult decision to put Harambe down, shooting him in the head and killing him instantly. The child was eventually recovered from the enclosure and taken to a hospital where he was treated for a minor concussion and abrasions, but thankfully nothing life-threatening. But with onlookers taking videos and pictures and posting them on social media, the reactions spread like wildfire. As expected, the mother was eviscerated by the online mob, with millions calling her an irresponsible parent who let her son just crawl into a gorilla pit where he was not only put in imminent danger, but also got an endangered species who didn't even look like he was trying to harm him get sent to the man upstairs. The public was also quick to judge the zoo's actions, with them condemning the zoo for not tranquilizing Harambe and being so quick to use lethal force. But here's the thing, even though I too think Harambe had good intentions, you gotta remember, gorillas are strong as and one wrong move and that kid would have been snapped in half. Not only that, but tranquilizers don't work automatically like they do in cartoons. It would have taken an extra 5 minutes for Harambe to get even a tad bit sleepy. And considering that boy was in the enclosure with him for 10 minutes, there was no way in hell that the zoo would allow that. Tranquilizing the silverback also would have agitated him a lot more, and the usually calm gorilla could have easily turned on a dime and did to that kid what 13-year-old me would do to my PlayStation controller after dying in a COD lobby. So the zoo pretty much had no choice. It was a quick, calculated decision that couldn't be slept on. And when asked about it, primatologists like Jane Goodall and wildlife expert Jack Hanna defended the zoo's actions.
They had to do something very quickly. The dart takes too long. The child would not have a chance.
But other people like presidential candidate and future dictator-in-chief Donald Trump more so sided with the gorilla, saying that Harambe was trying to protect the child.
I think it's a very tough call. It was amazing because there were moments with the gorilla, the way he held that child, it was almost like a mother holding a baby. Looked so beautiful and calm. And there were moments where it looked pretty dangerous.
Me personally, I think it was a lose-lose situation. And as much as I shit on parents of children that get attacked by wild animals, I actually don't blame the mom here. Seriously, she was handling 4 children and one of them was being an annoying brat. Of course you wouldn't expect a 3-year-old to be this determined to get into a gorilla pit, but kids are smarter than you think. They'll find ways. Now, as with any tragedy, the internet couldn't let it go to waste. For as divisive as the decision to shoot Harambe was, the one thing that kept everyone from turning on each other was the shared, pure, unadulterated stupidity of the memes. Everywhere, people went from mourning to worshipping him, posting GIFs, parody videos, joke games, rap albums, even going as far as to vote for him in the freaking presidential election. A Cheeto that looked like him sold for $99,000 on eBay. And my personal favorite of this tomfoolery, people chanting and tweeting, "Dicks out for Harambe." I can't even begin to make this shit up. Also, let's not forget the countless Halloween costumes. A bronze statue of Harambe was placed in Bowling Green right next to the Charging Bull on Wall Street. Cincinnati Bengals pass rusher Sam Hubbard promised to win the Super Bowl for Harambe. And yesterday, the White House tweeted out a commemoration for the 10th anniversary. The Harambe incident wasn't the first time a child fell into a zoo enclosure. It's happened several times before, and some of them have had much uglier consequences. For example, on November 4th, 2012, in another Midwestern city with an underachieving AFC North team, Pittsburgh, in what became the worst thing to happen to the area until the Antonio Brown saga, Elizabeth Durkosh took her 2-year-old son Maddox to the Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium, and while at the African painted dog exhibit, she lifted him up onto the wooden railing of the observation deck to get a better view. Murphy's Law later set in, and the child lurched forward and slipped out of his mother's grasp, bouncing off the safety netting and landing in the enclosure with 11 painted dogs. I can't show you what happened next, but it probably looked a little something like this.
Get the f out, man!
The wild dogs immediately swarmed and pulverized the poor boy, and while his mother did attempt to jump in and save her child, she was restrained by the nearby guests, meaning that for 5 minutes, there was nothing she could do but watch her son be mercilessly eviscerated. By the time zoo staff and police managed to lure 10 of the dogs away and kill one, it was already too late. In the aftermath of the tragedy, the Pittsburgh Zoo would remove the observation deck and the remaining dogs altogether, giving them away to zoos in undisclosed locations. The area that housed them was later repurposed into a cheetah exhibit, and they're still there at the zoo to this day. But to add insult to the zoo's injury, the Derkashes, despite clearly having ignored the warning signs around them advising them not to lift children up onto the railing, would sue the zoo for negligence, seeking $300,000 in return. They stated that the observation deck was unsafe and exposed with dangerous animals roaming free below, and brought up past incidents like in 2007 when an employee had told the zoo higher-ups that parents were dangling children above the safety rail and suggested them to install a transparent barrier around the opening, which would have prevented a child from falling in and getting mauled by the wild dogs. But the zoo later counterclaimed the lawsuit with some good old common sense, stating that the parents were the ones responsible for Maddox's death. And they couldn't have been more right, as Butterfingers here should have known better and simply asked a zookeeper for a pair of binoculars. Everything was later settled out of court, and the judge ruled the case as a tragic accident, and neither the zoo nor the Derkashes would be punished. This next story has a much happier ending though, but it's still not pretty. Cause in 2015 in Little Rock, Arkansas, a 3-year-old boy was also attacked after he was lifted up onto the railing by his grandfather. And much like Maddox before him, he too fell off and fell 16 feet into the jaguar habitat, where the two of them bit into his neck and leg. And if you know anything about jaguars, you know just how powerful they are. Just one of these cats possesses a bite force of 1500 psi, or a bite force quotient of 118.5, strong enough to tear through the hides of caimans and crush skulls. So, logically, it should have been game over for the kid. But luckily, the boy's father and grandfather managed to distract them by throwing cameras and a water hose at the two cats. And eventually, a zookeeper managed to scare them away with a fire hydrant. The toddler was later recovered from the exhibit and transported to the Arkansas Children's Hospital, where he was treated for scalp injuries, a fractured skull, a minor puncture wound, and wow, considering how much damage just one jaguar can inflict, I'm legit surprised he's not dead. Anyway, the boy lived to see another day, and the two jaguars were also unharmed. But hey, maybe next time, I don't know, don't put your kids up on the railings of zoo enclosures. This isn't rocket science, people. You should much rather have your kids not see the animals than them being dead. Okay, so now to answer the question on everyone's mind, how did this simple gorilla's death change the timeline? And the answer is... no. But so many crazy things have happened since then that it would be easy to scapegoat this one incident as the catalyst for everything wrong with today's society. I mean, since the tragedy, a former reality TV star became president, 3 of the greatest comebacks in sports history took place, countless celebrities were exposed as predators and canceled, said reality TV star president gets impeached, a global pandemic, police brutality, racial tensions, another presidential election between two lemons in which an actual zombie beat the reality TV star, who then incites a riot and becomes a convicted felon, and then gets re-elected again, grocery and gas prices skyrocket, the housing market skyrockets, the middle class gets f***ed over, multiple mass shootings, and worst of all, billionaires destroying the environment and other people's livelihoods for the sake of shoving AI slop down our throats. Oh, and we still have no GTA 6. But hey, maybe that's what we need in order to get the world back to normal. Rockstar, please stop delaying it. Put it out now. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, even if it was a little depressing. Not just with the life story of Harambe, but also with the two other children who fell into zoo enclosures. Also, sorry if this video feels a bit rushed. I was trying really hard to put this out on the 10th anniversary. So, never forget Harambe. Anyway, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!